Hello and welcome to Universal Studios Hollywood. I'm so excited you guys are here. It is time for Horror Nights. It is time for new restaurants, new theming, so much new updates. Let's head in the park and check things out. Now, before even heading in the park, Globe Gardens has this massive white tent in front of it. They are holding some sort of event today. Outside of the main entrance, you might notice the red carpet is missing, but the Universal Studios globe is finally spinning again. And of course, let's look at the main entrance where we have the Weekend After Hours Nightmare covering the gates, along with Halloween, the Horrors of Blumhouse, the Terror Tram, Universal Monsters Legends Collide, Universal Horror Hotel, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and La Llorona the Weeping Woman. But don't worry, we are going to get a much better look at all of these houses, including looks inside the houses for the first time today. So stay tuned because we have a lot to look at. First one in the park, and it does look like they are rope dropping us today. But from right here in front of the park, you can see they've replaced the billboards outside the animation studio store with Halloween billboards featuring Little Boo. Above Sideshow Slaughterhouse in the New York streets, we now have a brand new billboard saying Universal Studios wishes you happy Halloween. And we have two new speakers to the left and right of the clowns out front. You can also see the 4 flamethrowers at the top of the truss, which have been added, which spew out flame every night. Today's projected attendance for the theme park day is actually less than what it is going to be tonight for Halloween Horror Nights by about 5,000 people. So it looks like we have a lot of people rope dropping today, and interestingly enough, they're not all headed to the lower lot of Wizarding World of Harry Potter. We have a lot of people heading this way towards Pets Place. But before heading into Pets Place, because we have a lot of stuff to check out, we're going to turn here into the Central Plaza. Now here in Universal Central Plaza, you'll see there's really no one behind me, no one around, and that's because this is mainly just for Halloween Horror Nights. This is where people can get drinks, kind of relax, hang out. Here, looking at the La Llorona house, we have no updates out front, except we now have 2 speakers, one on the left and one on the right. But now that we are in the park, I kind of wanted to show you a little bit inside the houses. So here's a video of a little bit inside the house. You can see it's pretty similar to the previous La Llorona houses, and from what I've heard, this is definitely one of the most scary houses in Halloween Horror Nights this year. Turning to the left of La Llorona, we have Universal Horror Hotel. You can see a sign that will be brought out during Horror Nights. They do have an RIP tour lane, a Universal Express lane, and then just the regular standby lane. And this is a completely original house taking place in the former Walking Dead attraction. Here's a look at what it looks like on the inside. From what I've heard, this is also one of the scariest houses in Halloween Horror Nights this year. And also just know that this is a temporary house, so it will be torn down to make way for the next house. Both Despicable Me, Minion Mayhem, and Secret Life Pets Off the Leash are not included in Horror Nights this year, so they will close at 5:30 p.m. One thing that has changed is the Minions meet and greet. Here's a photo of the cool costumes that the Minions wear during Halloween. Here outside the La Llorona house, we have no updates here to the El Pueblo del Terror scare zone, except for this gargoyle, which used to be right in front of the Minion Cafe right there. Now, this is the oldest prop in Halloween Horror Nights because it's not just from Horror Nights. It's been used in shows here, including a Monsters show from the Creature of the Black Lagoon inside the current special effects show, and so much more. Now, let's turn to the left and check on some lower lot construction. And before even looking over the edge, this is the clearest you will see the valley because it was pouring out yesterday, and that cleared out a lot of the pollution, a lot of the smog, and you can see all the way to the mountains far in the distance. It's beautiful. Okay, but now let's get our first look at Super Nintendo World. So starting at the right side, looking at the blue wall, I don't know what they're doing with these clouds. I mean, they've been changing color every week. One week they were here, one week they were gone. Now they don't really look like clouds. We have no update on the warp pipe, unfortunately. I was kind of hoping we would see a color change this week. Coming in the land, we have no update on Peach's Castle. We do have a new tree that's been added next to one of the piranha plants. Now, interestingly enough, a lot of the figures, including the piranha plants, the mushroom, even the Goomba, they've all been covered up because of recent rain in the area. Coming over, looking at Bowser's Castle, not much of an update here to note. And looking over to the left at Mount Beanpole, not much of an update here as well. Of course, we will get better looks at this from the Starway. To the left of Super Nintendo World, you'll see that they are repainting the lower lot sound stages to match the new paint scheme of the ones behind Little Europe. I do really like this paint scheme. This video was taken from the Curie Storage Parking Structure roof. Now moving to the left a little bit more, we have our first huge update here at the former commissary area, which is, it has now gone vertical. We have a steel structure of at least just a two-story building. We'll see how much higher it gets from here. Moving to the left over at the Creative Campus, we have so much movement going on. The cranes are moving. We now have 2 cranes on the roof. We have 2 big yellow cranes that are both moving right now. To the right of Super Nintendo World, right above the Killer Clowns from Outer Space House, you can see that there are some workers on the roof of one of the sound stages wiping off some of the mildew and gross stuff off the roof. Now, every time I leave the for more smoking section, I do have to say, do not smoke, it kills you. Leaving the scare zone, these are, as we thought, rear projected screens, which show just more comic book art similar to the stuff that's across the way in these posters. The Wizarding World of Harry Potter is pretty packed right now, and we do have our first look at the Death Eaters. Other than that, they didn't really do much to the land itself. Across the way, Production Central is closed right now, but we'll have a better look at that in a little bit. But right next to Production Central is Jabberwockies. And for those of you who don't know, Jabberwockies is a 30-minute dance show right here inside the Special Effects Show. And the Special Effects Show is still open during the regular day. Jabberwock is just a nighttime show for horror nights. Now, walking towards the studio tour here, I'm not expecting much updates on the studio tour, but I'll show you what I can see. Now, I don't know if I pointed this out the last time I was here, but right next to the studio tour entrance is a brand new screen. Hopefully, they'll use this to show off some of the stuff filming on the lot, because right now it just shows the Universal Studios Hollywood logo. The first thing we can see is a brief glimpse at Super Nintendo World, and right next to it is the Creative Campus, where it has gotten so much taller in the last week. Wow, crazy stuff. Here's a closer look at Super Nintendo World, and right across from Super Nintendo World, you can see some of the lower lot sound stages are getting some paint on them. Now, right behind Super Nintendo World is the Weekend House. Here's a look at the outside, and here is a little bit of a look at the inside. This is supposed to be a very fun maze where you step into the Weekend's after-hours nightmare. It seems like really, really cool house from all the videos. Now, here outside of the Killer Clowns from Outer Space House, you can just see that they've had a little bit more foliage on the outside. Here's a look at the inside. Again, this is an exact replica of the previous Killer Clowns from Outer Space House. Very fun, very whimsical. In Courthouse Square, they have removed the Rutherford Falls gazebo, which was there for several years for the filming of the show, which was just canceled by NBC. There's also been some fungi growing underneath the courthouse. I don't know if that's real or if it's fake. Looking to the left of Courthouse Square, you can see some of the new paint and thematic elements that have been added to the buildings. Leaving the Backlot section, this is the first time I have ever skipped Kong 360 3D in my many, many years of being a pass holder here. We did get to go through the picture cars, and the fog looked great in Jurassic Park. Now, leaving Jurassic Park and going past the Flash Flood, 6 Points, Texas was still closed for what we now know is the filming of Quantum Leap. They've added some dirt to the ground of 6 Points, Texas. Likely having so many trams pass through, it just wouldn't look as good. Here in Little Europe, here's a look at some of the back sound stages. And while the fire was working on Earthquake the Big One, the sparks were not. Past the Jaws attraction, they were redoing the Chicken Ranch, and it looks absolutely beautiful. New walls, new paint. They're likely going to be filming something here pretty soon. And here we are at Halloween Horror Nights, where you can see the front fences, the Halloween Harry facade. This is where scare actors will kind of run at you when you get off of the studio tour, or the Terror Tram, as it's called in Halloween Horror Nights. Then you'll walk past the fences outside the production cars, where scare actors will kind of be banging against the fences, and then you'll walk through the Bates Motel, where there are some party guests, and there's a DJ right in the center of that courtyard that gets slaughtered right in front of you in a really cool show moment. Leaving the Bates Motel, you go up the hill, and they've added some barriers and some speakers on that hill. Once you get to the top of the hill and past the Psycho House, which is open for a photo op, you pass through Black Cat Alley and through the War of the Worlds set, where there are scare actors and mazes and all sorts of cool stuff. You leave this section of the Terror Tram house on this side of the War of the Worlds set, and then you walk up to Jupiter's Claim, but on that walk, there are no scare actors. Inside of Jupiter's Claim, there are scare actors portraying characters from Jordan Peele's Us. Now, here outside of the Curious George parking structure, you can notice something going on the side of the structure. Pretty interesting. You know what? Let's teleport to the structure to see what's going on. Okay, and here we are at the top of an empty Curious George parking structure, where the update isn't to what we can see from the structure, but on the structure itself. And the update is, you might remember a couple weeks ago, they were starting to put up some walls on the side of the structure to prevent you from looking over onto the Horror Nights lot. Well, those walls are now up, which means we can no longer see over the side of this structure. And they're not just up here on the roof behind me, they're up on every single level, which means there is no way for you to see off the side of the structure anymore, which will restrict our view onto Horror Nights. Now, the Curious George parking structure is home to two houses. First is Scarecrow the Reaping, which has been a huge surprise to a lot of people as it is very elaborately themed and very, very scary. The other one is Halloween, which, while it does have a longer wait typically than Scarecrow the Reaping, seems to be a little bit less themed, but both houses are incredibly, incredibly popular. Okay, now let's head back to Jake. And here we are back at the tram unload area where you can see the Halloween Harry photo op, which is neat. And leaving the studio tour, of course, I have to wish you all a tram-tastic day. Okay, and now headed towards the lower lot, we're gonna peer over the edge here, and of course, we have to start talking about Horror Nights, of course, Horror Nights. So looking down, the first thing we can see is the Universal Monsters Legends Collide house, which apparently looks beautiful. Here's a look at the inside of it. It is beautifully themed, really taking advantage of that small space behind the Mummy queue. And interestingly enough, right outside of the Universal Monsters Legends Collide queue, it looks like they have repaved the street out front of it. Interesting. Looking at Super Nintendo World from this angle, they've just added a couple things here and there. Going from left to right, here's a look at Mount Beanpole. Here's a look at Bowser's Castle. Here's a look at the area outside of the Mario Kart show building with the pyramids and the piranha plants. And of course, here is our look at the warp pipe. Not much to see there, but we do have a lot to look at in the lower lot, so we're gonna check that out right now. It just started to rain on the way to the lower lot, but looking at the side of the Revenge of the Mummy show building, we now have a new poster for Ticket to Paradise starring George Clooney and Julia Roberts. While looking at Super Nintendo World, it doesn't look like it's changed too much. This might be the biggest update we've had to the lower lot in quite some time. Right outside of the Jurassic World show building, we have the haunted house entrance for Universal Monsters Legends Collide, which is right behind the Mummy over there. And at the Weekend After Hours Nightmare Bar next to Jurassic Outfitters, it does look like they've added some corporate branding. Speaking of Jurassic Outfitters, we now have Halloween Horror Nights inside of the Jurassic Outfitters store. Let's get a closer look. Now here's a look at the display. It is exclusively Universal Monsters with t-shirts, picture frames, keychains, magnets, books, and even a long sleeve shirt over there, which looks pretty cool. These are also blacklight reactive. Here's a look at the back of this display, and it extends over here to the right-hand side where we have merchandise for Halloween. We have a sweatshirt, we have Never Go Alone up here, and so much more stuff. Behind this and the front standee, we have more merchandise. We have the Black Phone and Freaky double feature shirt. Here's a Killer Clowns from Outer Space long sleeve shirt and a cup above it. We have a wood plaque that says Halloween Horror Nights over here, and lots and lots and lots of phone cases. Here's a magnet that features Lil Boo. To the right of the phone cases, we have even more. Here there is a Legend of Halloween book, some cups for Halloween, Smith's Grove Sanitarium, some magnets and a hat. This is interesting, a tombstone ornament, Halloween Horror Nights band, some keychains, socks for Horror Nights. This is so cool, with Killer Clowns from Outer Space on them and Halloween. On this side, we have another cup for Halloween and another sweatshirt. Across from all of this is the Studio Screamer collection with popcorn buckets, where you do get your first popcorn free, a Halloween Horror Nights hat, Hawaiian shirt and Loungefly looking bag, a blanket, a t-shirt, a mug, and the Studio Screamer plushes. We also have a Studio Screamer collectible along with Studio Screamer socks and this really cool jean jacket. Now, if all of this merch wasn't enough for you, over here we have even more for the After Hours Nightmare. You'll notice it doesn't say The Weekend on it. We have a Horror Nights t-shirt and tank top. This is what it looks like on the back with all of the houses, not including The Weekend. And on the other side, we do have one shirt here, the only shirt here that has The Weekend on it, and it says After Hours Nightmare. Here's our look at the Weekend After Hours bar, where there's no update from last time. Likely all the fun happens at night. Outside of Revenge of the Mummy Eats location has been wrapped to feature the characters from Universal Monsters Legends Collide. And right across the way, outside the character shop featuring Super Nintendo World, the Frankenstein collectible popcorn bucket along with the Dia de los Muertos bucket are being sold down here as well, along with some Universal Monsters Legends Collide sippers. Outside of the killer barbecue from outer space, we now have a look at the menu, which includes Florida favorites like Twisted Taters. Here's a look at the menu along with prices, and right across from the killer barbecue from outer space is JoJo Ice Cream, which replaces Studio Scoop. Here's a look at it, and it looks like their ice cream options open for Horror Nights are open during the day too, where you can get a killer cone, popcorn shake, and acid pie shake. Right next to JoJo Ice Cream, the Transformers are not coming out right now because it's raining a little bit, just for the safety of the performer. But outside the Studio Cafe, we have some construction walls. And I'm not sure what they're building here. This might be some sort of booth or some mobile order pickup. Whatever it is, it's taking up a lot of space here. Out front of Transformers The Ride 3D is the entrance to Killer Clowns from Outer Space on this side, which kind of snakes around that side of the building. And over here, the Weekend After Hours Nightmare, which snakes around this side of the building. Looking at Super Nintendo World, not much to see here of the Warp Pipe or the clouds, other than just this closer look. And before heading to the upper lot, I want to show you guys some cool stuff going on at Universal CityWalk Hollywood, starting with the Twosome Chocolate Emporium and Savory Feast Kitchen. And here we are at the Twosome Chocolate Emporium and Savory Feast Kitchen. Let's get a closer look. So while walking up to the future restaurant, while there isn't much to see from the front at first blush, there is a lot to look at. Starting at the side, you can actually see we finally have some theming. We know what the outside of this building is going to look like. You can see this brick. It looks great, and that brick also continues around to the front of the restaurant, where you can see it on the second level underneath the arch. An interesting thing to note is that the arch still does have the guitar balcony outside of it. So I don't know if they're going to get rid of this. I certainly hope they don't. It'd be cool to see some hard rock remnants in the new restaurant. Now, underneath the smokestacks, it looks like they're doing some work. And moving up to the top of the smokestacks, you can't really see anything. Looking at the groundwork from the side, you can see there is going to be a substantial rise in elevation between this restaurant and the surrounding walkways. And it looks like they're working on those walkways now as well. Now, this is definitely our biggest week looking at Twosome Chocolate Emporium and Savory Feast Kitchen, so let's check out some other CityWalk new additions. Here inside the Universal Studios store, the entire front section has been taken over by Halloween Horror Nights. Now, all this merchandise is the exact same that's inside the parks, but one thing that is new to point out is right here. This section, which used to be home to The Simpsons, has now been closed off. We don't know what it's going to be. Now, from the outside of the store, I was able to peer in. I saw some green on the walls, which makes me think Nintendo. I don't think it's going to be Nintendo, but on the inside, you can see it says Uni, and then underneath it says Ver, and then it's going to say Soul. So maybe it's like a modern collection of Universal merch. I don't know what it's going to be. We'll see. But regardless, right down the way from the Universal Studios store is the Production Central location, which has Halloween Horror Nights merchandise right in the front, including all this Lil Boo stuff. Again, Lil Boo is from Florida, but look, we even have a Lil Boo scented candle. We also have Lil Boo ornaments, a giant Lil Boo blanket. To the right of the Production Central location is Universal Studios Hollywood presents Super Nintendo World. Very exciting that this is coming soon. Here in front of the former Starbucks coffee location on CityWalk, we have no update here. To celebrate Halloween Horror Nights, Voodoo Donut has gotten into the season with some limited time donuts, including this one in the middle, which says, "Never Go Alone." I love that. Now, right next to Voodoo Donuts is, of course, the Halloween store. Let's check that out. Now, I see people referring to this as a tribute store. It doesn't say tribute store on it, so I don't think it is, but it's just one place to get all of your Halloween Horror Nights merchandise. I don't think there's anything being sold in here that is not being sold in the park, but here's just a look around. It's very pretty, and hopefully this, as a seasonal location, will sell Grinchmas merchandise during the holiday season, or we'll sell Lunar New Year merchandise during Lunar New Year. Whatever it is, it's very cool that they're using this location, the former Havana's shoe store. Let's head back to Jake. Okay, and here we are in the upper lot, where right behind me at the special effects stage, they've added a brand new TV, likely for the Jabberwocky show. And right behind this area is a staging area for Horror Nights signs, including signs for houses and libations. Right across from the Wizarding World of Harry Potter is the Production Central store, which has some exclusive Halloween Horror Nights merchandise, including right out front, this display for Nope and the Terror Tram with this really cool graphic I love, which is also available on a portrait. And they have it on a sweatshirt. Here's the front, and here's the back with that graphic. They also have a lot of the merch that we saw in the lower lot, but we do have some new additions, including these Killer Clowns from Outer Space scented candles. This is a larger one that's for annual pass holders only, and here is a smaller one. It's the same scent, it's just not for annual pass holders. It smells a lot like cotton candy. We also have some more merchandise, including a Halloween poster an ornament over here with Halloween and Universal Monsters Legends Collide, along with a Halloween scented candle, which smells like spices. To the left of the Terror Tram merchandise is more stuff that we saw in the lower lot, including the Universal Monsters and Studio Screamers merchandise, but we also do have a giant poster here for Universal Monsters Legends Collide on a Horror Nights. This is really cool for $34. This is huge too. We also have this huge wall here of merchandise with witches and pumpkins and skeletons and all sorts of different clothing items, from bucket hats to fanny packs to flannel shirts, t-shirts, and even beanies. We also have these really cool coasters and all of these different masks. Now, just know you can't wear these in the park, but they do sell them. Here inside the Animation Studio store, we have a whole display full of Lil Boo merchandise. As I said earlier, Lil Boo is the mascot for Universal Studios Orlando. And other than Universal Orlando being another Universal park, there's no reason to be selling all of this Lil Boo merchandise here, although these socks are pretty cool. Outside of this main display, we have some women's leggings, some candy, including chocolate, some lollipops, and Lil Boo candy corn taffy. Interesting. Over here we have a Lil Boo mini sweatshirt for kids, and then of course all of the popcorn buckets that you can get at all the popcorn locations. Looks like Beetlejuice is doing a meet and greet outside of the Horrors of Blumhouse Haunted House entrance, where really there's not much to see from this angle anyway. Here's a look inside of the Horrors of Blumhouse house, where it is separated into two sections, Freaky and the Black Phone. This house is very low to the ground because of all the tarps above Waterworld. Right outside of Waterworld, here's a look at the wait times. Forbidden Journey 70 minutes, Hippogriff 35, Ollivanders 15, Studio Tour 10, Secret Life Pets 25, Despicable Me 15, Simpsons 50, Kung Fu Panda 10, Jurassic World is 25, Transformers 35, Revenge of the Mummy 25. This is at 11:48 a.m. And across the way from the wait times is the Universal Studio Store, where we have more Horror Nights displays. Now, I feel like you guys have seen this merchandise a lot recently, so I'm only going to show you the new stuff, including right here all the Dia de los Muertos masks and merchandise, and we even have a scented candle. They also have flashing devil horns and a cup, two different cups actually. And this whole section of the store has been largely taken over by Halloween Horror Nights. And we have not seen this Killer Clowns poster. Here's a look at it on the outside. There's also an exclusive pass member bag for Killer Clowns for Outer Space. And that's all the new merchandise, and that's all the updates here for this week at Universal Studios Hollywood. Thanks so much for watching this one. I'll see you guys in the next one.